Hello everyone and welcome along to your Monday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening as I think what's effectively been described as Ant and Dec, joined by Simon Cowell. I've seen on Twitter, which I'm not. It might well be the case, might not be the case. I'll leave that up to you and you can choose who is who from that list as well. But joining me tonight in their actual names, we have Tommy McIntyre. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm very well. Sorry, let me just adjust the waistband of my trousers here. I am very, very well, thank you. As is the pumpkin.
You're far more prepared than I am for Halloween, so kudos for that.
You're scary enough, Craig. It's all right.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, no, listen, Halloween is, I think it's the best holiday of the year. That's the one that I really like. You can keep your Christmas.
It counts as a holiday.
Well, I get a holiday. I don't have to wear the mask that I wear in public most of the time. I can go out like this. So it's a holiday for me.
We'll let you off with that one. And join us wearing his Belgium national team top, which I just spotted. We have Kyle McLean. How are you doing, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm good, Craig. Honestly, I thought the giddy feeling of yesterday would have left me by now, but every now and again, I just think back to that header and just go tee because it was a great goal, and looking forward to getting stuck into it again.
Yeah, when Kyle gets giddy, he's absolutely unbearable. So I can't even want a second podcast.
Is it just when he's giddy? Is there a caveat to that?
Questionable. I was being kind, but Tommy, since I wasn't at the game with you yesterday, let's start, I guess, by talking about Rangers 2, Hearts 1. It was a dramatic game in the end. Was a hard watch for much of it, but 24 hours on, what are your reflections on the game? Was it more relief or is it more happiness at the fact that we got the 3 points?
Well, it just shows, and this is maybe a word to the wise of the people out there, trick or treating tomorrow. If you chap on enough doors, you will eventually get a reward. That's a hell of a long way around the houses, but I was determined to get that in at some point, right? So, relief, right? But it's also a wee bit of a kind of chink of light, so to speak, in the clouds, which is we know it was turgid. I think that's the word for it, and it definitely was not great to watch, and it looked like the points were disappearing back towards Edinburgh. And then we did what we have not done in a long time, which was keep going, believe in it, not panic at the end, and get something. So, listen, you can decouple the two things. We know it's been poor, and the squad's been poor, and individual players have been poor. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But for a new manager coming in, he's getting not just the bounce, but he's getting the luck, and he's getting the points, and he's getting the momentum, and that's all terribly, terribly pleasing.
Yeah, absolutely is. Kyle, we were obviously at the game yesterday. Tommy talks about it being turgid. There were many times where we were sitting back in our seats thinking this is never going to happen. We're not even going to score one, never mind two. Looking back on it, did you feel we deserved the 3 points out of that game?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think the way we played in that first 80 minutes, I think you said that on yesterday's podcast, I think looking back on it, I don't think people would say it was as bad as what it was, but I've seen some of the highlights. I've not watched the full game back, admittedly, but some of the bits of play were absolutely awful. If I'm being honest about it, no, I think a draw was probably fair in the grand scheme of things yesterday, but am I glad that we went on and won it? Absolutely. It's something that Clement's touched on in a lot of his press conferences, that he doesn't want players to be afraid to try to do things and to fail ultimately and to keep going to the end. That has been one of the messages, one of the stories that he's repeatedly put out, and ultimately we did that yesterday. So look, would have deserved to win the game? Yes, because we scored 2 goals and Hearts only scored 1 at the end of the day. So yeah, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it there, Craig.
That's a fair reflection, I guess, of the scoreline itself. But whether it's a fair reflection of the game, I guess, is a different matter altogether. Tommy, obviously, it was we were playing the Sunday. Celtic had played on the Saturday and dropped points. First time I think we've been in that situation so far this season in terms of us playing second and that having happened. Did you think that factored into the game at all? How hard is that for a Rangers team, do you think? That's obviously what we expect as fans to be the making of a Rangers team, in terms of when the opportunity arises, you go and you take the chance and you get the points and you close the gap. Ultimately, it was what happened, but how much of a factor was that, do you think? How difficult does that make it for the players with an expectant Ibrox?
Well, hard to follow such detailed insight as it was Rangers 2, Hearts 1. I mean, I don't know the amount of research that Kyle puts in this stuff, right? But I joke, obviously, Kyle. I know you've been hitting the books, right? But yeah, listen, I was on Sports Sound talking about the upcoming game after the Celtic result, and was asked that very question, and I was saying, yeah, when you see people slipping up, that's great, but the most important part is always the second part of that sentence. You then need to go out and do your job. By hook or by crook, how many times have we said as a fan base over the last couple of seasons, when they slip up, we don't capitalise. When they have a poor result, we have a poor result. Or an even worse one, they draw, we get beat, right? That's not happened here. Expectation is one thing, and the manager's trying to build that mentality, and I'm sure he'll change out some of the personnel when he gets the chance as well. We know where we are in terms of that squad, that it's not, optimal, it's not delivered consistently. But for once, even though it was poor, we get the rub. We got that final good ball, a striker who actually can score, right, which sounds, trite, but is slightly an aberration in our current squad. And before you know it, everybody's going home with a feeling that we've not had in a while, which is, we've got one there. We've actually just snatched 8 points. Brilliant, right? Tune straight in so you can see Stephen Naismith, crying, which is always a nice thing as well. So, no, I think there's a lot of positivity to be taken out of that. It's not the performance. None of that can be the performance, because that was terribly poor. But it was the character to keep going. It was little bits of quality at the top end of the pitch. It was seeing a striker coming back who's maybe get the potential to be the answer up front for us. And the fact that you've capitalised on a slip. Now you're staring at, it's 5 points. We're edging closer to the winter window. Personnel can be changed out. We keep the momentum. There's eyes just starting to drift towards the 30th of December, because we all know what's in the water there. It's a really good moment that way. It doesn't negate the fact that the team put in another poor performance, mind. So, two halves to the story.
Yeah, Kyle, a couple of comments from Pete Lawrence. First one, the character of the result outweighs any negativity for me. We haven't shown bottle like that for a while. And he follows that up with, that was a milestone for this squad, having the bottle to get some leverage on our rivals. I guess the title of the podcast, it talks about momentum. Can that be a momentum builder? The way the game started, we did not look anything like the team that we did that showed such promise. Like when we played against Hibs 7 days before, there was no high press as a team. We seemed to be pressing in ones and twos. We didn't seem to be able to put our foot on the ball for more than 5 seconds. The ball was up in the air more than it was on the ground. It was a really discouraging first half. I think it's fair to say. What did you make of the tactical approach? I didn't get the impression it was the one that Philippe Clement set out for the team to take in that first half.
Yeah, look, there's two things here. Like, I'm going to bring a comment up. I'm going to really mess with your agenda here, Craig, and I'm going to say Hugo Bear here says we had a very difficult away Euro game on Thursday. Euro hangovers are normal. Did I buy into that? Not really. I was going to say, do we have a big enough squad? On paper, I suppose we do, but in terms of the injury list, I don't think at this moment in time we do have a big enough squad to deal with a sort of European fixture on a Thursday and something on a Sunday. It maybe plays a slight element into it, but it's not the be all and end all. Okay, the Hibs game was his first proper game in charge. You're very much at the start of the honeymoon period. I suppose you could still say we are in the honeymoon period, but I don't know, there was a bit more to give. But let's not, beat around the bush. And it really pains me to say this, but I thought Naismith tactically did things well yesterday. You could see that they were, blocking the passing channels. Obviously, I mean, anybody with half a brain or that knows anything about football, you're obviously going to put Lawrence Shankland on Yilmaz. That was exploited in the first 4 minutes, obviously, when they got the goal. Fantastic header from him. But I don't know what it was yesterday. why that performance was so bad. Okay, I thought Hearts were okay. I thought they stuck to their task well, but there's one player we'll maybe come on to him later on in the podcast. I'm sure you want to talk about, but like Glamours for me, everything broke down through him yesterday. He was the weak link in that team, and something that needs to be addressed quickly. I don't know what caused the slow start. Was it a number of things? The European hangover? I don't know.
Yeah, Kate, you said
two things there. One, really thought you called them glamours for a second. there ain't no glamour to be found there right now. And two, really disappointed you didn't manage to make some sort of pun out of Hugo Bear being Cocaine Bear because of his viewpoint there. So I just think we could bring more to this podcast tonight. Right, that's it. There we go. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought now. It's completely gone out the window.
Not that this Ibrox endorses the use of recreational drugs, by the way. I'd say that all the TII lawyers will turn me into a pumpkin as well.
Yeah, Kyle also mentioned the fact that that one player that we'll definitely talk about, that could be about 5 different names if we are brutally honest about it. So we'll come on to all 5 of those later on. But Tommy, one of the ones that it was immediately obvious to us at the game, and we spoke about it within the first couple of minutes, but Hearts immediately targeted Ridvan Yilmaz down our left-hand side, down their right-hand side. They had Lawrence Shanklin pulling off onto him, basically, and they instantly put high balls down the line towards him. Is that something you noticed at the game? Firstly, obviously played a factor in the Hearts goal after 8 minutes that Shanklin scored as well. He pulled off behind Yilmaz. Some question about Yilmaz's positioning as well. Is that a concern if Borna Barisic is out? And we all know I'm not a fan of Borna Barisic, right? But if Yilmaz is the other option and his height isn't, he doesn't have the height that the other left backs do, then is that a bit of an issue for us?
Well, yeah, they were certainly doing it, as Kyle referenced there as well, and it obviously leads to the goal. Not taking away the fact that it's a really good header by Lawrence Shanklin as well. You know what I mean? Yes, in terms of it gives you a problem because Ridvan Yilmaz is short. Right, there's no two ways around about that. That in itself is not a criticism for all you short men and women out there looking to find a partner this Halloween. Right, it doesn't actually. Well, I'm sitting in my Bristol seat, obviously.
I know. Listen, out the 3 of us in the podcast, I'm not the one to be slagging off here.
Fair enough. Right, I'll let you two sort that out behind the scenes. There's nothing to do with me. But what you're looking for then is how do you solve? Right, because if Barisic is out, Barisic has his own problems. We know about his lack of back post defending previously at places like Parkhead and stuff like that. So are you then saying it's more about the people and the personnel? So if you know you've got a short fullback and you know Shanklin is going to peel off and go to that, why isn't one of the centre backs going with him?
To be fair, I did think Ben Davies did a really good job in covering Ridvan Yilmaz a lot, and that because Yilmaz naturally, I think, has a higher starting position than Borna Barisic does, at which point it leaves more space. But Ben Davies, I think, had a really good game yesterday. I thought he defended really well. He won most of his headers. He was solid on the ball, and I thought he covered Ridvan Yilmaz well. I think there comes a point where when you're defending a cross ball into the box, it's difficult to be in 2 positions at once. But
definitely,
sorry,
I'm not disagreeing with you there. So I interrupt. I think you're absolutely right. What I was saying though is, do you end up going with the man? Because if you swap it out and you go right, well, Davies or Goulton or whoever, right? Okay, Davies obviously on that side, but go with Shanklin. Wherever he is in the box, one of the centre backs pick him up. You could have done it that way. I mean, I understand why we haven't. You know, Yilmaz tries to get tight, but he's never going to win that type of header. The problem is if it just becomes a consistent problem and people are scoring goals off of it, then you've got a wider issue with your fullback there. And it's not as if Yilmaz is in that position now of maybe a James Tavernier, which is you accept the deficiencies at the back because he gives you so much going forward. And I'm sure we'll touch on Tav and the fact that everybody has the same view, but the different view at a different moment in time when it comes to him, right? But I personally, I don't have a massive problem with Yilmaz's height until such time as he loses consistent goals back there and we don't solve the problem. then you do have a problem with it. It's that simple.
Yeah, Kyle, just picking up on a point there Tommy made about James Tavernier, and James Tavernier will be a topic we discuss quite a lot on this podcast as we go through the sort of main events of the game. But Joe 90 first of all says, I think it's fair on everything but the goal. Even in RTV they agreed the cross had to be blocked. It's a nightmare cross to defend. It would also help if he had a run because he does have a leap. And Jim Backs also follows up, says, I agree with that, but more pressure should be put on the cross coming in. I think it's common knowledge amongst Rangers fans that we do not do well at stopping crosses coming into the box, whether it be on the left-hand side or from the right. Do you think we should be stopping that cross first and foremost, and that's actually just as much to blame as sort of Yilmaz losing Shankland over his shoulder?
Yeah, 100% on there. Like, I know it's going to sound like I've been bigging up Hearts quite a lot on this podcast, but
Kyle, the Hearts fan, eh?
I know what's going on here, man.
Look out for This Is Time Castle. Spin-off series coming soon.
I know, but listen, it was the cross was a good one. It was Tav that was out there, wasn't it? But you're looking for the central midfielders in that role as well. Lundstrom, who had a very good game yesterday, I thought you're maybe looking at him to go back and defend that. Maybe looking at Raskin, who I thought was okay yesterday up until his injury as well. You're looking at one of the two of them to go. It's, as you said, it's historically something we have been terrible at as defending crosses, but it's something at Rangers that I think we just have to accept, that we have fullbacks that are better attacking than what we are defending, because largely we are going to be playing against defensive setups, and it's better that way. But look, the cross, as soon as it left that boy's foot, it was a really, really good cross right into the back post, and there's not an awful lot you can do about it. That was kind of, obviously I was devastated that we lost a goal within the first 5 minutes. I think that may have contributed to the next 80 minutes losing a goal early. Again, traditionally we do not react well to going down so early. I think I even turned round to you though during the game, Craig, and said the only positive I can take from that is if you're going to concede a goal, you would rather it came in the first 5 minutes. And I was hoping for us to go on and push on from there, but we didn't. But yeah, to go back to your point, the cross should be getting stopped from source. I'm sure that's something Clement's working on. As he says, he's still in his observational period. There's still some central midfielders to come in. I'm assuming with Raskin being out, Jack would have been ideal to go. We know that Jack has played, especially in European games, has covered for Tav at right back. I'm not advocating that Jack should be starting these games, but I certainly think he would have been better assistance in that situation.
Yeah, we'll come on to talking a bit about the fact that actually I think as soon as Ryan Jack came on the park, James Tavernier was infinitely better than he was for the previous 85 minutes or so. But Tommy, when you lose a goal that early, I think it was 8 minutes in when we lost the goal, it's always a worry for me because teams tend to just sit back and I will block and defend what they have rather than trying to even come out and have a bit of a go. I thought Hearts actually counter-attacked us quite well yesterday, even just by holding the ball up and gaining territory. But it's always a concern when you lose a goal that early, isn't it? Like you say, it was a really good finish by Shankland. So I think Kyle threw me under the bus yesterday, so I'll throw you under the bus today. Warren Shankland for Rangers in January.
We'll come back to that one in a second, right? Yeah. But whilst I put my thoughts together, in terms of, listen, I think it's Cochrane whips the ball in. I might be wrong with that, but I think it's Cochrane. And you're right, and people in the comments are right as well. We should be closing it down quicker. That's a very fair shout from everybody. Yeah, it depends what you want in terms of that. I think it was 5 minutes, by the way, not 8, but happy to take a beat on that. In terms of, we didn't see a massive reaction from Rangers, although when you actually start to break it down, it comes back to one of those stats v what's in front of your eyes conversations. Because we had something like 70% of the possession, 28 shots, only 5 on target. No spoilers there of what's been our common problem throughout the season. And then, 84%, tipping towards 85% in terms of successful passing and stuff like that. So we did actually dominate the ball. I think Hearts, back to your point, Kyle, as well, had set themselves up to try and get that early goal. Every team coming to Ibrox wants to get that early goal because they're looking to see if they get a reaction from a team that's still not massively confident, and they know that the fans might not quite go with this particular team. So you can quieten the noise, get the fans getting a wee bit edgy, and then start to play on the break. So, yeah, I mean, I think they set themselves up well. I think we did a lot of the non-glamorous things like controlling the ball, but that's not this team's problem. This team's problem has been at the front end of the pitch, or the top end of the pitch, however you want to describe that, and taking chances. And we left it very, very late. We got a brave call by the refereeing fraternity in terms of doing that. Very, very easy to walk past that in the VAR room and not ask the referee to come and see it, especially when you're doing it a second time. Could have been different if James Tavernier scores the first one. But yeah, ultimately you get to that point whereby we've done just enough. Do we need to see more for the team? Absolutely. Lawrence Shankland in the summer, in the winter window, very much depends on the price that Hearts would be looking for. If it's several millions, I don't see it. It also depends, quite frankly, on who Rangers are able to move out the door.
I think the consensus in the press room actually was, and not to go too deep into the we should buy Lawrence Shankland conversation, but I think the consensus in the press room seemed to be around the £2 to £2.5 million mark that Hearts would be looking for him. Whether that's true or not seems a little low to me. From what I would expect, they're obviously expecting them to put a Rangers tax on that transfer fee as well. Whether that's the case or not, but at that level, I probably would going on his display yesterday alone. Never mind anything else. But also, obviously,
that said, though, I've been in that press room as well. There's some wild takes and opinions in there. So I definitely take a beat on that. But yeah, listen, I think most people are interested to hear what anybody says in the comments. If they're saying, because that's what it always becomes, right? I'm never a big fan of these, or would you take this player conversations, because everything is subject to the law of the financial reality. So if somebody says, would you take Lawrence Shankland that will cost you £2.5 million in January? People in the comments, give me your opinion. You both give me your opinion, because I think £2.5 million for Lawrence Shankland is worth it.
I think at 28, and the fact that you look at what we spent money on in the summer, and much more money than that on in the summer, probably got a much more guaranteed output from Lawrence Shankland. You've seen what he's done, you know what he can do. We always tend to glamorise the foreign player coming in from the big league and think that they're going to do it much better than the player in Scotland. And more often than not, it's not the case. I mean, Kyle, you were quite strong. You had quite strong views on it yesterday as well.
Yeah, my views are just based on the fact they hardly celebrated, because we all know he supports Rangers. So that's why I'm happy to see him. And Tommy, see, when you were talking about the wild takes in the press room, that's pretty harsh on Michael Beale, to be fair.
Too soon. Surely too soon.
But yeah, with what you've said, I know you hated me saying this yesterday, Craig, but he's we need somebody. When was the last time we probably went out and bought somebody half decent in the Scottish market? I couldn't. Ryan Jack, maybe.
Thought you were going to throw something.
Glenn Kamara, yeah. There we go. There's my point. Just totally blown out the water. But
I'm sorry. I apologise, but I just need to throw that finished grenade at you. I mean,
well, even like that was what, 4 years ago, something like that we ended up signing Glenn Kamara for. So it's been a few years since we went out and done that. When we have traditionally had, Scottish goal scorers at Rangers, and he's a guy that knows the back of the net. He knows the league. Something that we've said, it's the jobber teams that you want to play at, the teams in the lower half of the table. He, for me, I think I said this on yesterday's pod, he would be a good foil. I think I could see him and Danilo. We know that Clement likes a 4-4-2. I could see Danilo and Shankland working really well as a sort of the little and large up front, if you know what I mean, going back to a bit more old school. I am all for Shankland coming to Rangers. I know it caused a pretty heated debate in the This Is Ibrox WhatsApp chat yesterday, but that's the type of conversations you want to be having. I think we should be signing him. It's a no-brainer. If he's happy to come here, if he's happy, he's under no illusions that he's not going to be starting every game. I think that's the main thing if he does come. But yeah, I'd be snapping him up $2.5 million. I think that's a good bit of business all round for all parties.
I'm glad you didn't partner him with Dessers in that example. We obviously missed, Tommy, you mentioned we missed the penalty just before half time. I thought that was a bit of a hammer blow for us. It was a lifeline back into the game for absolutely nothing. I don't think we necessarily deserved to be level at that point. I don't think we had created enough at that stage to be level, but obviously went into half-time 1-0 down. I tweeted from the TII Twitter account that if Lammers and Dessers come back out for the second half, we might as well all go home, which I don't even think was harsh, to be fair. Normally you'd say, oh, that's quite a wild take, but I don't even think that was harsh. Cyril Dessers did not come back out for the second half. He was hooked at half-time. Seems like we're speaking about Cyril Dessers after every game, Tommy, and maybe over-analysing what he's offering the team, but it's kind of the only focal point we've got at the moment until Danilo is back fully fit. I just felt Dessers showed absolutely nothing again. Will we keep persevering with him, do you think?
It's an interesting one, that, and I should say, just before I give you an answer to that, purely because I did you dirty there, Kyle, in terms of hitting you with Glenn Kamara. I actually agree with your wider point. It's been a long time since we dominated buying domestic players. You could argue that there's a little bit more focus on some of the up-and-coming players in English teams and foreign teams step in, and we've been in a bad place the last couple of years. But yes, you should look to your internal market and try to pick up bargains and get them in. So I do get your wider point. In terms of Dessers, I think Philippe Clement would love to turn them around. I think the club would love to turn them around because he's still an asset. And if you want to get him back at the door, you're going to try and recoup some of your money, the majority of your money, most of your money, all of your money. If Danilo gets fit, I think you could maybe see that changing. And also maybe if he can have a Danilo Roof partnership up there as well. You know, you've got some complexities to that as well. But it's all about trying to get something out of Dessers and get to the window. I would be surprised if there haven't been some feelers put out about who could take Cyril Dessers and Sam Lammers on loan in the winter window in terms of with a view to moving them on. It's just that we need to be really honest. There's no chance, I believe, unless we're doing some amazing deals, that you would get your money back for what you paid for them right now. So it comes down to how much is Philippe Clement, now that he's getting himself in and around the squad, he's seeing them, he's understanding the work rate. Does he think he can actually repair Cyril Dessers? And then you get into a slightly different thing, which is Cyril Dessers has maybe got to that point with the support, which is no matter what good performance he puts in, you're maybe waiting for the next bad performance, which is unfortunate, and I feel for the guy, I really do. But he doesn't give you any sort of confidence when you watch him. And I know he's trying hard, and I know he desperately wants to be good in a Rangers jersey, same with Sam Lammers, but they're not. The best you can hope for sometimes is they worked hard. And actually, it's not even in the right way. Sometimes they're just running about, and it comes a point in time where you just need to say, listen, this is not for you. We hope you go and have a great career somewhere else. But it really is difficult to see how they bring themselves back into any sort of positive relationship with the fan base right now. As much as we all want guys wearing Rangers jerseys to do well, I feel for the two of them, and I don't see how they repair it.
Yeah, I'm going to step in there. Tommy talks about that, the positive relationship with the fan base. I think yesterday that there was a negative effect. I don't think players are willing to play the ball into Lammers or willing to play the ball into Dessers the same way that they did, especially when Danilo. I said it yesterday. I don't think Tav plays that cross into the box on 93 minutes if Dessers is in that position. I just don't think that the players have the confidence and the belief. Just so my colours are firmly nailed to the mast on this, in January, if we could punt both them out on loan, I would be doing it if I was Clement. I would just have them away from the squad. I think it's having that big an effect at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken on previous podcasts. We've been in the press conference, the press room, when Dessers has done a couple of post-match press conferences and stuff like that. Couldn't be a nicer guy. Couldn't want him to succeed anymore, but it's not working. And there's only so long you can persevere, and we're about 2 months past that length of time at this moment. But Sam Lammers, Tommy, Kyle and I spoke at length at the game yesterday about the fact that anything that went to him, that was the end of any promising attack or any attempt at us going forward, because he just lost the ball. Never seen a player turn into traffic so much in my life. He's supposed to be everyone says he doesn't score that many goals, but he's technically a good player. his first touch yesterday was his second touch was he'd have his first touch and his second touch was a tackle every single time yesterday, and I'm just not seeing it from Sam Lammers, and I was actually surprised he stayed on until 70 odd minutes, 74, 75 minutes or so. He came off. He falls into the same category as Cyril Dessers, but I just don't see how he fits into this Rangers team.
Yeah, listen, and again, you speak to some people behind the scenes, and they'll say that these guys are great in training, right? But that becomes the weight of expectancy when you step out on the pitch in front of a packed Ibrox and stuff like that. It has an impact on some players. I think you're right. Much like you've just referenced, Dessers was the big buy up front, going to score goals. No happened, right? Doesn't look like happening. There you go. Lammers was sold as you say, he's not maybe going to score tons. That was caveated, be aware of that. But he will be a linchpin and he'll be a creative force in and around the box, and you'll see that link-up play and he'll be terrorising the space. Not seen it, right?
Yeah.
I think he had one good header in pre-season and the rest of it's just disappeared, right? He doesn't have great awareness around about him. I don't understand how these people can be, they must have some awareness that they're professional players, right? Because they're certainly better than me at the 11s or whatever, right? But you're right, he turns in, he doesn't seem to have confident taking the ball in space, doesn't seem confident taking the ball under pressure, doesn't seem to be able to play the first time pass, doesn't seem to be able to judge it, doesn't seem to be able to be dangerous, doesn't want to get creative, likes to put it back and all that. The only thing I'll say for Lammers and Dessers, and it is the bare minimum, at least they keep showing up and trying to get the ball, right? They're not hiding, they're not doing, that running into a corner and just, the attack's passed me by. So best luck to them with that, but it's not what Rangers need on the pitch. Rangers need a creative force, a goal-scoring force up front. That is the bare minimum of what you need from your strikers, so to speak. We're not getting it from Cyril Dessers. He probably needs to go. We're definitely not getting it from Sam Lammers. He probably needs to go as well. Yes, I know that they're probably handicapped to some extent for the level of sales chat that was given by the previous manager about them and how they were going to deliver, right? It set a level of expectancy. But they've not done anything that makes you think, just give it 12 months, they'll get used to Scottish football, they'll come good. At some point, you need to pull the ripcord and go, right, I don't have the receipt anymore, I can't take them back, but I can certainly stick it on eBay and see if I can get some of my money back. And that's pretty much, or Facebook Market or whatever it is people use, right? There you go. So Sam Lammers, exactly the same bucket. It's a very thin sheet of paper between who's been the worst, right? And I think I said this on the radio the other day as well. We certainly shouldn't walk by Jose Cifuentes as part of that conversation. He's not as bad as those two, but there's three players with a fairly large outlay that have done absolutely zero for the Rangers' cause.
I think I'm willing to give Cifuentes a bit more leeway. He was like £1 million, £1.2 million. He's been injured a lot of the time. He seems to play for Ecuador and then come back and be injured for a couple of weeks, and then takes him a few weeks to get. So I don't think he's as good as I thought he would be so far in terms of Cifuentes and the way that we saw him play for LAFC in the build-up to him moving here. But I'm willing to give him a bit more time. I don't think
that's fair.
He's only really played under Michael Beale. He's only really played under Michael Beale. He's not had the chance to play under Clement at all. He's on the bench.
Fair challenge. It's a fair challenge that would be, to be honest. It's a fair challenge, right? And I should be really clear. I'm not putting them into the same bucket as Dessers and Lammers, right? So I think that's a very fair challenge that you've given me there. We'll stick with the front two. Dessers doesn't score goals, and Lammers doesn't set them up. There you go.
A lethal or unlethal combination.
There's the thing. You talked about it there. So Rangers pulled the ripcord on Michael Beale. What's stopping us from doing the same with players?
Sellable assets. You need to see what
trying to make the money back.
Yeah,
fair enough.
You need to, when you get rid of a manager, generally it's because you're trying to protect your position in the league or move forward or whatever. That's a kind of definable point. You can get rid of that. But the people actually pulling the levers on the pitch and scoring goals, they're assets that are losing money every day, much like you drive a car off the forecourt. You're losing money every day, and Rangers are not in a position to be able to write off the cost of Lammers and Dessers immediately. If that was the case, it would be an absolute turkey shoot out there, and football would just ripping up contracts left, right, and centre for everybody. But there you go. That's the long answer to that.
Yeah.
I think Cifuentes we might actually see more of, given the fact that Nico Raskin got injured yesterday. Kyle, he's been he's not had the best start to the season. I don't think Nico Raskin seems to have been playing a wee bit better in the last few games since Clement came in. How big a miss will he be? It looked quite a bad one. Stretcher came on. I think it was his ankle after he had that shot that hit the side netting. It always looks worse when the stretcher comes on, I guess. But I imagine he'll be out for a few weeks at least, if not more. How big a miss is he going to be for us?
Yeah, time will tell, I suppose. But so far, he has played pretty well under Clement. I felt that Hibs game particular highlight. He seems to have been going back to the clips that we've seen of him in Standard Liège, and even the first few games under Beale, where he didn't have the hands of Beale on him quite yet, and he'd been sort of out-coached or over-coached. I feel he had that. He's got that, he gets the ball, snaps forward, and it's something that we've been missing a lot in our play. I feel that he's going to be a big miss. It's interesting, though, what you said about Cifuentes. I agree with you there. Looking at, Lammers and Dessers, I have seen bits from Cifuentes that's made me think, there is a wee bit of a player in you. Like, he's had a couple of really, really fantastic balls out wide that I thought that is a pass. Again, his highlight reel from LA Galaxy, that was something that he did. I think he'll fit into that role quite nicely. You touched on it earlier on. I think Ryan Jack, he looked really good yesterday at times in terms of the defensive side of things, covering Tav. And we all know what we get from Ryan Jack. There's a semi-final against Hearts coming up next week, and we all know who loves a goal at Hampden against Hearts in a Rangers shirt, and that's Ryan Jack. So, yeah, hopefully not too big a blow. Hopefully we do have the squad to fill that gap that Raskin's left. He's certainly been improving under Clement, and yeah. It's just it's a shame. I mean, I was going to say Clement must be pulling his hair out at the injury list, but it's a shock. How do you account for something like that? That just seemed yesterday like it was a total freak accident. I think watching it, but did he maybe sort of catch the turf with his studs, or did he get caught, or did he kick the ground? If that is the case, then maybe looking at him maybe out for a few weeks or whatever. But see, if he didn't catch the turf and he just went down, I dread to think how long he'll be out for.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a replay of it, so I'm not entirely sure what happened exactly, but it did look a sore one. Tommy, 1-0 down, 70 minutes gone, substitution ready to be made. Off comes Todd Cantwell, perhaps the most creative player or the most positive player we have on the park. But we're 20 minutes left. We're searching for not one goal, but two goals, and off comes Todd Cantwell. Safe to say it wasn't a popular decision at Ibrox when it was made. It was one where Philippe Clement spoke about it afterwards and said he was listening to the medical team, and no matter what the situation, Cantwell was playing 70 minutes and he was coming off, and that was that. I guess that's quite refreshing in one way to hear, because I imagine under the previous management he would have played the full 90 minutes plus, and that obviously can have certain ramifications, but I felt that was a bold move from Philippe Clement.
Certainly a bold move. I mean, I don't know if I'd paint Michael Beale as being the type to ignore medical advice. I know Michael Beale's not the most favourite person in the room, but
it seems to be that Philippe Clement seems to paint him that way, to be honest.
Well, maybe, but I think people do listen to medical teams and they don't overly push it. But your point's made in terms of people didn't like the change. It's been explained though, which is maybe the refreshing part as well. This is expressly what it was. I stuck by that. Looking after my players from a medical sense is the most important thing. Yeah, and I think that's the important thing, because if you get an explanation, this maybe goes back to communication as well, that there's an understanding of what the manager's trying to do. Even when it goes wrong, I think that Philippe Clement will find himself in a place that we don't, as a fan base, react too quickly against that, because he's a proven winner. I spoke about this last time I was on as well, that he gets a bit more goodwill because he is a winner. It's not is he just off the training ground and making this up as he goes along? He talks too much. I think Clement will tell you what he's going to tell you, and then if you ask him any other questions, you're getting told that he's not going to answer them anymore. And he backs that up with the fact that he's a winner. I mean, ultimately, medical decision. You can't argue against it. You know, I mean, nobody's there to get injured or hurt, and you do want to protect the player being able to come back next week and the week after and the rest of the season. The only thing I can maybe hope for as well is if Nico Raskin is able to walk, then he has a right good look around the treatment table in Auchenhowie looking for Kieran Dowell, because it'd be really useful to see him back in a Rangers jersey at some point.
He was on the bench. He was on the bench yesterday.
I know he was, but it's actually nice to see him taking part at any point in time. I'm not entirely sure what's been the long-term problem there, and whether I know he had a couple of niggles and stuff like that as well, but ultimately, are we going to see Philippe Clement try to use Dibble as he moves that midfield roundabout? There's people in the comments saying brings Cifuentes into the middle, don't play him out wide, etc. So there is a couple. The point I was making slightly glibly is there's a couple of options maybe coming back onto the field there as well. Clement to try and get the best out of some of these players that hadn't really landed under Michael Beale either.
Tommy, sticking with you just on the Todd Cantwell, he's obviously been playing in midfield the last few games. Partly, I think, to accommodate Sam Lammers in the front three. Should Todd Cantwell be moved forward into that front three with Sam Lammers shifting out, you think?
I don't think that there'd be I don't think there'd be a lot of people after my blood if I said you drop Sam Lammers, right, and then you replace him with a Todd Cantwell, and then you look to, once they're fit and they're back, people like Tom Lawrence and stuff like that as well. Don't forget we've got Yanis Hadji out on loan. I'm not falling into somebody becomes amazing just because they're not here. Yanis Hadji has his own deficiencies and shortcomings as well. But yeah, listen, you want Todd Cantwell as far up the park as you can get. I don't think anybody's going to find that controversial either. And he certainly would do more than Sam Lammers is doing right now. And it would be no bad thing to get Sam Lammers, much like Cyril Dessers, out of the limelight sometimes. I think Philippe Clement is maybe trying to go the other way to begin with, which is, here's confidence, lads. I believe in you. I've heard it. I've seen the clips. I know it's not working. Let me tweak some of your game. Let's see if it comes off and you score, or you set up a goal, or you have a storming performance. Show me something, and trying to get them that way. He'll do that for a while, and if nothing turns around, I think Philippe Clement will then say, right, I need to rejig some of the personnel. Again, though, all of it comes back to what we started right at the start of this podcast, which is Philippe Clement right now is concerned with, get me the points, get me the wins, get me to the winter. I can change things, but keep winning, because I'll keep this momentum for as long as I can. But he's not getting anywhere near that he needs enough out of the likes of Sam Lammers.
See on that Lammers Cantwell chat, I would even take that a step further than that.
Cantwell kill Sam Lammers.
Sticking with the Halloween theme there as well, Tommy, but Cantwell is that good a player. Like, he was operating 60-70% fitness, or no, that's ignore that fact, 90% fitness maybe you would say yesterday, and he was miles better despite how awful we were playing. One is that first penalty and all the good bits of play. I would be building the whole team around Cantwell. That is how good a football player he is for me.
Yeah, it's difficult because you want to think Todd Cantwell is going to be here for a long time, but it's he might only be here for a season or two and then be snapped up by an English Premier League club. But if he enjoys it here, he plays well, he does well for us, then you can't really argue with that one. And I guess if you're building a team around the players that you have there, you can't really be thinking too negatively on the fact of how long they're actually going to be at the club. Kyle, mentality was a key focus for Philippe Clement in his post-match press conference. He highlighted James Tavernier's mentality as exactly what he wanted from every player at Rangers. I'm sure that would have rubbed a few Rangers fans up the wrong way, given how much or how often his mentality is questioned. He obviously missed the first penalty before half-time, get a second penalty as we enter the 90th minute. Steps up, and as I said during the game yesterday, hits it exactly where you're going to hit a penalty after you just missed one before, high and down the middle, because the likelihood of the keeper standing still is next to none. But he slots it away, grabs the ball, and off we go again. He is less than 2 minutes later, 3 minutes, I think it was 93rd minute, he whips he's been horrendous at crossing the ball all game. All game he's been overhitting crosses. All game he's been picking out a Hearts player with a cross, struggling to beat the first man from corners, and then he whips in an absolute worldie to Danilo at the back post, and all of a sudden it's 2-1. James Tavernier had a terrible game for 85 minutes yesterday, and for the last 15 minutes he looked like a world beater, and he walks off with a goal and an assist. How do you rationalise that as a Rangers fan and what we get from James Tavernier? Do you almost have to put up with the first 85 minutes, knowing that more often than not he's going to contribute in some way to a goal?
Yeah, because the simple answer to that is because he's James Tavernier and he makes defenders fear. But no, the one thing you can never level at Tav throughout his whole Rangers career is he never hides. He never ever hides. He's always there, and he takes the abuse. He takes the stick. You know, I know he's been slaughtered by many a pundit as well, but he's always there. Every manager highlights his attitude. I think I touched a wee bit on this yesterday. He's a different type of captain. He's a modern captain. He's the guy he's not your Richard Gough or your Terry Butcher. He's not going to come away with bloody bandages and be giving players bollocking on the field. He leads by example, and that was it. Hopefully, Clement talked about it in the press conference that we were at yesterday, and in several other media outlets. He talked about that as being a reference game. You just know that going forward, Clement in the dressing room is going to be like, that game against Hearts, we were down and out, and we came back to win it. I think maybe there was a discussion. We touched on it earlier on. There was a discussion to be had about the personnel that was on the pitch. I think that totally changed the way that he played. But yeah, for me, he's a fantastic captain, a fantastic player. I think if he was a world beater, he wouldn't be at Rangers. It's as simple as that. I think as fans, we have to accept that he could be rubbish for 85 minutes, 80 minutes of a game, but football's all about those moments, and in the big moments, more often than not, he steps up. I mean, even just looking back at various goals since he's been at the club, he has played a huge. I think I saw some mental stat, and that since he's been at the club, he's had a part in 25% of all the goals, be it an assist or be it a goal himself. Crazy numbers for a fullback, and sometimes we should maybe just take a wee step back from that. I know it's hard as fans to do when you're emotional and you're in that environment, but and I don't want to say he's immune from criticism, because nobody's immune from criticism at Rangers, but I think it's time that we just have to accept that Hall of Fame James Tavernier, that's what you're going to get from him.
Tommy, on the mentality point, I think we all recognise that it was different yesterday to what we've seen before this season. It felt like I think you referred to at the start, we kept going till the end, and we seemed to continue to believe it, and we didn't panic. I think we've been in situations like that earlier in the season. We've panicked from about 70 minutes onwards, and we're just shelling balls into the box. It was clear that we did not panic yesterday. How important is that mentality? And I guess the question is, how many of our players do you think actually have that mentality that they need? It's something that's been brought into question quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to go through every single player or anything like that, but there's a group of players there that, for one reason or another, aren't either able or capable, maybe the same thing, of delivering in a Rangers jersey, right? And whether that's expectation, talent, whatever, you can take your pick at, right? We all know those players. I think you're right, we didn't panic. We also didn't do a hell of a lot in the second half, other than right at the very, very, very death. The team were probably reflecting on some of the booing at half-time and stuff like that as well. And come out and get the 3 points. A lot of players going to their shell. I think we've seen that over and over again. So that's Philippe Clement's real job, right? Alongside keeping momentum, winning 3 points, keeping us in the cup, all that type of good stuff, right? Getting us through in Europe, is to assess this squad as quickly as he can. I mean, it strikes me as the kind of guy who's already got a lot of what he needs written down, right? And then be able to say, right, how can we move them on? or how can we change this, or who comes up from the youth or whatever. These are the things that need to happen really quickly. You can live with a couple of players who are a bit shaky if you get everybody else operating at a really high tempo. Problem is we haven't had that high tempo from the rest of the players for a while, and now we're looking at it. So yeah, that's where we are. I mean, it's old ground until it's new ground, and the new ground being until players are shipped out and new ones are brought in, and there'll be changes in winter, there'll be changes in the summer. I did just want to touch on the Tav stuff as well, right? So I was thinking about this as Kyle was speaking, in terms of, and I've done it myself. There's a lot of contamination when it comes to talking about James Tavernier, right? But if you're thinking of, let's say, misses a penalty, gets back up at the death, right? When you know if you miss that penalty again, the abuse is going to be rock solid, right? Scores it, and then sets up one at the end. If that's Todd Cantwell who does that, then nobody's talking about bad passes or anything like that. It's just he's incredible, right? It glosses over the poor performance. Or indeed, if I go slightly further back, he does nothing but he scores goals, Chris Boyd type of scenario. People are willing to live with a certain level of, change in performance level if you're getting something else and out of it. With James Tavernier, it's the whole confection of what is the captain supposed to do, etc. And to pick up on Kyle's modern point, just to finish there, does it change the optics for anybody on this call or anybody in the chat, right? If James Tavernier is bloodied, he does have the headband and all that, and he's going through the wall and he's shouting at the fans and he's shouting at the players, and he misses a penalty, and then he goes at the last minute and scores one, and then he sets one up. Is it the reaction? Is it whatever? Because if a Goff or a Butcher or somebody else did that, you'd be saying, that's the mentality. That's the get up. He never gives up. He keeps going. You can live with it. And like I said, I've done the exact same thing myself. I've had a go at James Tavernier and I've backed him as well. But sometimes the optics are just that, just optics. Ultimately, the team was getting beat at home in a really bad moment, and your captain's stepped up with a pressure penalty, knowing that he takes personal abuse for that. So there he goes, bangs it down the middle, and then has the confidence to not take the easy ball and roll it into somebody else's feet. He whips in a ball which could go wrong because he's been pretty poor at them recently. Whips in a ball, and for once a striker gets on the end of it. And we shouldn't miss out the fact that maybe some of these crosses haven't been great or not been resulting in goals because our strikers haven't been exactly banging in chances.
Yeah.
Tommy clearly thinking he's still at work by calling this a call rather than a podcast. So
if I just refer to these slides before we break out the call, right, there we go. I didn't realise I'd done that. There we go. Right,
and sticking with a Halloween theme, wanting Tav to get his bloody bandages on again next time he comes out.
Well, it's me that's got a bloody nose there from saying call instead of podcast. This podcast. There we go.
Kyle, 3 games into Clement's reign in charge at Ibrox, 2 league wins against what are traditionally 2 of the better sides in the league, a point away from home in Europe. How do you assess what you've seen so far?
I've been impressed. It seems... Was I expecting, I don't want to say the ship to be steadied this quickly. Was I expecting these type of performances, these type of results? Absolutely not this quickly. The feel-good factor is back. And again, it's back a lot quicker. It's Rangers Football Club. It's like a balloon that can get popped at any second and you can get brought straight back down to earth with it. But at the moment, I've been very happy. You asked me on in that Hibs game, Craig, when we were doing the pre-match sort of ramblings about the lineup and what we're expecting, and you said,
I think they were more coherent than ramblings. To be fair, Kyle, I'm going to
go with ramblings. I thought nailed that there.
But you said, what are you wanting to see from this team? And it was just something that we can sort of cling on to, something that we can grasp onto and recognize patterns of play and an identity in this team. And I really, really, really think that we are starting to see that now. Again, I've touched on it. This will be the Hearts game will be a reference game Hibs, we absolutely blew them out of water. The Sparta Prague game was difficult. We didn't have a left back basically, and we adapted. Now let's not forget about it. That's a team that I think they've scored in every single home game that they have played in this season, and we went there without a recognised left back and got a draw out of it. So looking at the three results, I've been very, very happy, and the fact that we're still in a sort of observational period as well. I can only think what it's like when he really starts to get going, when he really starts to bring his own players in, when he really starts to get his own story, his own philosophy across. I've been very, very happy in the first three games, put it that way.
Tommy, Kyle's filled us full of positivity there, so it's time for me to bring us back down to earth. We've closed the gap to 5 points. It's a start, I guess, on that front. I have no confidence that we will go between now and the new year without dropping any more points. Where do you stand on that? Where's your confidence in this team and their ability to string out a real run of wins together?
Oh no, I'm probably in a similar position. I'm not. I mean, Kyle's so angry that he's just disappeared. He's left this podcast. See, I got it right that time. No, listen, I think you're right. I mean, we all know the shortcomings of this team and that they can put in those performances. Getting out and showing a mentality and going to the end and getting it isn't the ultimate answer. It's part of the answer. We should also be putting in levels of performance as well. So yeah, I think we're still a question mark whether we can do a run to the end of the year, the calendar year, in terms of that. Ultimately, though, do we also think our rivals will go all the way to that? I think
both teams are struggling at times, especially after European games. Both teams seem to be struggling form wise, and it's going to be really interesting going forward. But we just need to. I've not got the confidence that we can make sure that every time they slip up, we are right on their coattails, picking up the points that we need to.
No, true. Listen, I get that, and I probably broadly agree, right? But you look at it and you think, well, it wasn't 5 points before the weekend, so that's positive. And now it's 5 points. We see what happens in the next game, and the next game, and the next game, and then we take stock before the 30th of December. No matter what happens, a lot will come down to the 30th of December, not just the 3 points, because it will be a chance to see, can Philippe Clement get a better tune out of some of these players in terms of a collective performance? And then can we get a result away from home as well? And that's going to be the big thing. And then once you shake that out, then it's interesting. If you're still within a couple of points post the result on the 30th, or indeed if you've overhauled them by the end of the result on the 30th, that's where you go from. So all eyes are on that. Do I think we'll go at the end of the year without getting beaten? I don't, is my short answer.
Kyle, all starts again on Wednesday night against Dundee. How you feeling heading into that game? Dundee, I think, are 4th in the league currently. How are you feeling? You feeling confident?
Yeah, honestly, I think we've got, as you said, Dundee have had a pretty good start to the season so far. Was I expecting Dundee to be in 4th place, this far on? Absolutely not. But yeah, I think we'll have enough in the tank. It'll be very, very interesting to see what the starting lineup is. I will be stunned if we see Lammers in that starting lineup. As I said yesterday, I would have McCausland ahead of him. I would have Cantwell in that position over him and play somebody else, in the forward lines to accommodate that. I'd never like midweek domestic games, to be honest with you. I'm much more confident on a weekend. But yeah, we should be going out and famous last words, isn't it? And beating Dundee. I'm looking for a much better performance, something a bit more cohesive, something where the ball doesn't break down every time we're attempting to go forward. I would like some crosses where it doesn't hit off the first man. If I see some of those things, a victory for Rangers and a couple of goals, I'll be happy on Wednesday night.
Sadly, it sounds like you're talking about a Sunday league team there, the way you said that. We're actually talking about Glasgow Rangers Football Club. On that, On that note of positivity, I think we'll draw this podcast to a close. Thank you very much to Kyle and Tommy for joining us. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you enjoyed what you've listened to, drop us a like on the video, drop us comments on anything you've agreed or disagreed with. If you've got any comments on Tommy's Halloween-themed background, drop that in there too. And please do remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel, and you'll get a notification every single time we go live. You'll catch every podcast that's uploaded, and we look forward to welcoming you in the comments in terms of what we've got coming up live. I think you're stuck with me again, me and Kyle again on Wednesday night for the post-match reaction to the Dundee game. So make sure you join us for that one. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And until next time, goodbye.